All right, so thank you very much for joining us here today. We have a very special guest, Kathryn Lee. Thanks for coming. How are you doing?
I am doing well. We have just placed our 2024 work placement students out into the community with our very supportive community partners, and we are very pleased for their experiential learning experience with community partners.
That is so wonderful. Well, we're in for a treat today for all of the listeners. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Kathryn. But first off, I wanted to start the podcast off with saying cheers. So cheers to you.
And cheers to you. I am very excited about doing this.
Happy Tuesday. And I wanted to take a minute because I think it's important for everyone to learn a little bit about you. So I did some homework.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna say a few things that I found about you so everyone knows how great of a guest and how lucky we are to have you here today, Kathryn. So sit
Thank
back and
you.
relax. I
Okay.
could probably spend 45 minutes for context of how amazing you are. So I have a few things, but we won't take up the whole podcast, but
Okay.
just to give a glimpse. So here we go. Kathryn is an awesome person. She's a wealth of knowledge and goes above and beyond. It's been an absolute pleasure collaborating with Kathryn over the years. She's truly a standout professor who constantly puts her students first. Kathryn's dedication to delivering exceptional experiences has no bounds. She's constantly goes above and beyond to ensure her students receive nothing but the best. Her genuine care and commitment shine through in everything she does, and I consider myself incredibly fortunate to have the opportunity to have worked alongside Kathryn as she's such a remarkable individual. So that one's from me. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I wanted all of our listeners to know, how special of a moment this is to have you here, have this conversation, and just a little bit more about you. So Kathryn, who's joining us, she has over 20 years of experience in an assortment of roles, including software learning facilitator, training specialist, and she's also currently a professor at Fanshawe College, and she plays a huge role in preparing students in the office administration health program. So thank you so much for joining, Kathryn, and that was a lot, but I wanted all the listeners to know a little bit about you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to get out of my office door tonight because my head's going to be this big. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. So we just learned a little bit about you, but I always love to start off my podcast by saying, do you mind sharing your journey, in the field of education and really what inspired you about your career and how you got here?
So I've been teaching all my life, whether it was Sunday school, whether it was 4-H. I come from a small rural community. Whether it was 4-H, I have been teaching for a long time. And in one of my contract positions, I was brought on to tutor students who were being educated in the pre-press environment. And while I was there, one of the professors was ill. I was asked if I could at least take the class so that the class would have someone live sharing information with them. The next day, I was made a teacher. And I was thrilled and pleased. And then I have actually pursued achieving more education and working on more and more experience within the realm of teaching. So I started teaching officially in 1993 when the adoption of desktop computers had expanded to start forcing job losses. So I was actually retraining pre-press operators. And to give you an idea about their expertise, 4/1000ths of an inch could ruin their task.
Wow.
These were highly skilled people, and the desktop computer was changing their life. So not only did we teach the content, but we also needed to be available from a very human perspective because the world was changing under their feet. There was anger, frustration, there was a lack of income. And in one very, very unfortunate circumstance, we lost one of our students to suicide because of the change. So it was a significant learning experience for me, and it helped me to develop some of my learning skills or my teaching skills. I then moved into the legal vertical, and I was responsible for over Y2K and into the early 2000s, moving many, many legal firms in Canada from WordPerfect to Word. So
Okay.
again, it was the challenge of the implementation. It was the challenge of change and transition. It was the challenge of being moved, of students being, or learners being moved out of their comfort zone and into something that was new. And it did get to the point where I was able to help learners, help my colleagues, help the people that I worked with to resolve their technical issues with their major tool, which was a word processor, without necessarily opening my computer. I love to be able to do that,
Wow.
that I knew the steps in my head. I knew what they were facing by their description, and I was able to integrate them, which of course made me a better teacher trainer when I was doing that part of the role as well. Then I moved into healthcare,
Okay.
and in healthcare after legal, as I said, I didn't even need to turn on my computer in many cases. I
Yeah.
did in legal, or I did in healthcare. When I first started healthcare, I had to confirm and research and double check every single thing I said, every email, every communication, everything. And one day this was early January, I was sitting in the Allentown, Pennsylvania airport,
Okay.
and a client called and they were desperate to move on with their task. And I was able to help that client without turning on my computer. So I had returned to my comfort zone, which
There you
I
go.
very much appreciated. Then I moved into more academia. So as you mentioned, I am with Fanshawe College in London, Ontario. I'm very pleased to be a representative of Fanshawe College. Excuse me. They are a world-renowned education facility, and I am very, very fortunate to be there. And in this case, while I am teaching adults, they are adults that have recently come out of high school,
Yep.
and they are definitely COVIDites, and the impact of COVID is clear. They are mature students who have maybe been raising a family, maybe have been working in another industry, and now are coming to get reskilled to go back out into the workforce. So much of my previous experience can contribute to that as well. And in December, one of the things that I took note of is that I attended the Data Analytics for Healthcare Summit 2023. And one
Yep.
of the items that seemed to be notable was the use of data points, such as postal codes. And when I'm teaching, postal codes are like, oh, come on, Kathryn, what do we need those for? The number of addresses that I see without postal codes, because of course, so many of our students do everything electronically. They don't use
Right.
postal codes. But what was really interesting is the connection that postal codes was having on data for healthcare,
Right.
because postal codes allow us to break things down by geography and very, very precise geography. Then we
Right.
can overlay things like services. So where is a service provider located? Where is how many of those service providers are located in that area? And then it even goes as far as we can overlay what is the transportation like? How do these people access those service providers? And it all stems from understanding and knowing what a postal code is. So
Right.
it was really interesting to see that progression where I used to teach postal codes to ensure that a piece of mail would arrive appropriately. And now I get to connect postal codes with emerging technologies.
Wow.
Yes, so that is my roundabout, and I may use the phrase later that success is not a straight line, but I feel very successful, and my success journey was not a straight line, but in the process of doing that journey, I have learned so much, and I am very honored when learners allow me to share that with them.
That's incredible. And I didn't know that background. And what's really exciting is, you've been, working for over 20 years. You've really have experience.
30, over
Let's just say
30.
20. Come on, Catherine. Over 30 years now in these different fields, and it's so incredible that you've had the opportunity to work at the beginning stages of computers and technology and software. So I guess this kind of goes to my next question. So fast forward
Yes, absolutely.
to 2024 and this new
Yes.
generation of AI and how AI is emerging. So I would love to hear a little bit about, from you, your thoughts. You're working with these maturing adults and experiencing this journey as well. Can you just share your thoughts on what you're seeing right now?
So it's not only maturing students, but it is also students from the global community, that we
Yes.
have an incredibly diverse group of students. In my group this year, I had 3 students from Nepal that I have not had
Oh,
previously. There
cool.
is quite a contingent from South America. There is quite a contingent from India, as well as our ever appreciated domestic students. And with that, it's about being able to take their varied learning experience and move it towards a Canadian employment experience.
Correct.
Being able to take this diverse collection of information and equip the students to be able to go out and apply their learning into an employment situation.
Right.
So on the specific concept of AI, where I'm seeing it in my classroom is that AI is used to enhance submissions,
Yes.
enhance work that the students do. And with that, the concept of cheating is very, very, very much a hot topic right now,
Right.
because various cultures determine cheating differently from what a Canadian might.
Oh, very interesting.
So if you take a look at cultures that have a we culture, they're helping. If you take a look at a culture that is an I culture, then it is cheating.
Wow.
Also, when the students are being questioned about their use of AI, it is generally to ensure that their responses and their submissions are professional. That's really what they're using it for, from my perspective, because when you do any type of education or when you do any type of communication in a language that is not your mother tongue, there are all these nuances. The humor that you use is different. The ability to express your ideas at the level you want to express them is very difficult. And I know this personally from doing a French immersion program in Trois-Pistoles, Quebec, that in English, my mother tongue, I am able to teach at a college level. If
Right.
I was dropped into an entirely French speaking community, I might be able to work at McDonald's, because I
Right.
wouldn't be able to express my ideas, be able to translate the questions that come to me
Right.
that I normally would. So students feel this as well, that they're not communicating or expressing their ideas as capably as they would like to. There is also the fear of embarrassment, that they're going to say something that is truly silly,
Right.
and they're misunderstanding in some cases that AI is a tool. It's
Right.
not a cure-all. It's not a solution to
No.
everything. It is a tool. And you still need to apply your other research. Did you answer the question, or is this a single criteria search that you did? Because the single criteria searches aren't working. They're not following instructions. They're not responding to the questions fully. So the same as the internet impacted
Yes.
all of our abilities and all of our ability to access knowledge, artificial intelligence is also impacting our ability to access and gain knowledge. And we still have to fall back on those very traditional foundational skills of research, analysis, comparisons. We cannot do a simple copy, paste, and paste it in. My one
No,
example is that I, in my process, focus on Canadian legislation for healthcare.
right.
HIPAA is American. So
Okay,
when I get answers that include HIPAA, I know that they have gone out to another source, and I know that they haven't done that in-depth analysis. So
right.
when using these tools, consider the tool, but apply all of those good learning foundations that you already had. And use
Right.
that AI to expand your knowledge and your opportunities, but don't use it as a replacement. Because as
Yes.
soon as you get out into the working world, or as soon as you are asked to do a presentation, you will not feel as confident because you cannot Google your in the moment responses.
I think that is very insightful, and for all the listeners, I mean, it's definitely a different perspective on, really thinking about how people from all different cultures, what they deal with as far as communication, really, and their beliefs, and really seeing AI as a tool to help assist, which if
Yes.
think of it from what you're saying, it's a great tool in that sense because it puts everybody on the same playing field, right? And then it really
Yes.
comes down to a conversation about critical thinking. And can we go back to the basics, like you're saying, and
Yes.
really work with students on, okay, so how can we prompt and critical think around personalizing
Yes. Yes.
depending on the situation. But let's say in an interview sake, what we commonly see is, the same cover letter for every single job and the same, but no personalization. So I think this tool has really allowed users to be able to personalize, what their achievements and skill sets are.
Yes.
And how they can do that now is through critical thinking and ensuring
Yes.
that they're working with the tool properly. It's like any tool, like you said, the internet, the
Exactly.
calculator, you
Exactly. Yes.
even through all these ebbs and flows, and it's, how do we learn to work
Yes.
with it? Okay, well
Yes.
that's really interesting. So we're kind of leading into I call it my fun portion.
Okay. Yes. Bring on the fun.
I used to, so my previous role before I got in the tech side is I was in banking for 10 years, and I was in the training department, and they used to call me Fun Nicole. So
Nice.
like, I got to make sure I deliver, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so we're gonna do, so you have a pen and paper, we're
I
going,
do. I do. Yes.
okay, perfect.
Yes. I don't go anywhere. Let me make sure that I am
I'm
adhering
sick.
to privacy and confidentiality. I always have my
Blank piece
notebook
of
with
paper.
me. Yes. Yeah. So it is blank. There's nothing on here. And my pen is in my hand.
Okay, great. So I want you to write down, you can put two if you want, one or two
Okay.
things.
Okay.
Why do you think, based on your experience, students might not get the interview? So we have them going from a class or going into maybe a co-op program, in your situation in the medical space, which I know you have a lot of experience in. Why do you think they might not be getting that phone call for the interview?
They haven't done the necessary preparation.
The preparation. Okay,
The
so I'm gonna write,
preparation.
okay, so write the next one down, but don't tell anybody on the paper. So we'll do
Oh,
two.
okay. Okay.
Preparation, I'm gonna think, I try to rethink of these. Preparation. Okay, let me know when you're good.
Okay.
Okay, so I agree, preparation. Can you tell us a little bit more?
So I always focus on the resume, not
Yeah,
so much the cover letter, but the resume. Because what I have found with the students throughout the years, my learners in other organizations, is that they do not know how to speak of themselves well.
Right.
They do not know how to articulate their skills and attributes.
Right.
Also, it is a tendency to put this on the side burner or put this away until, oh, there's a job I'd like to apply to, as opposed to thinking about it ongoing. So if you are currently employed, if you are currently within a volunteer organization, every single credential you get, if it's a certificate, put it into a portfolio. If it is an accreditation, put it into your portfolio and list it on your resume, so that when you have completed your resume, you go, I look good on paper.
Yeah.
Whether that's electronic or whether it is hard copy, your resume should give you confidence. And if you have put the preparation into your resume, then the interview should be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And many people believe that the resume will get them the job. It doesn't. From my perspective, the cover letter is to get them to the resume, to get an employer or recruiter to the resume.
Okay.
Then the resume is to get them to call you and book an interview. And
Right.
the interview is when you go in and you show your skills, your attributes, and how you fit with this organization. So how you fit, what your skills are, what your attributes are for the organization requires research. It requires going to their website, looking at the news reports. What are the white papers that have just been submitted or published? What are the news reports? Are they getting good social media? Those are the things that you want to look at to feed your knowledge about the organization so that you tailor your resume. We have now evolved past the resume that fits all.
Yes.
Now the resume needs to be targeted to the organization and to the position that you are applying for. And also your resume is about the position you want, not a grocery list of the tasks you have done. And you need to be that bridge that moves them from what you've done to where you want to be.
This is such phenomenal advice. So for all of the listeners, Kathryn just gave you a gold mine tip, all of the things you need to do, which are absolutely true to ensure that you're able to, go from the cover letter, and the cover letter gets you to the resume, and the resume gets you to the interview. That's such a great perspective, and I think that's a great tip for anyone out there. If you're a student and you're looking for a placement or a job, if you're an adult and maybe you're going through a career transition, I think a lot of people have to hear what you just said, because it could make or break the difference of getting the dream job, which is why I wrote down, it's hard to see, but because I have a fake background. But I wrote down personalization, which is to what you said. We're really past this era of one size, fits all, where we need to go above and beyond and personalize what our skill sets are on that resume, on the cover letter to the company. And the other reason too is they're doing a lot of keyword analysis now using technologies. And if you're not saying anything relevant to what they're looking for in that position, you're going to get weeded out, because a lot of people are applying for these jobs. So I absolutely can agree. I think that is great insights. Okay, so we got one more to write down.
Okay.
We're gonna go in and meet our friend David. We call him AI Digital David.
Okay.
And Kathryn, we're gonna see if David agrees with us.
Okay.
You have a lot of experience. I'm still gonna say you have 20 years of experience. But I think you're sharing so many invaluable insights for all of our listeners. So it'll be interesting to see if
Thank you.
Okay, so we've now got the tips to actually get the interview. Now, what is the one thing you think the candidate might do where they don't actually get the job, so they're not successful? So what have they done in the interview that could put that interview in jeopardy.
And you want me to write this down?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, let's go. What do you think? Yay.
Okay. So this one is very, very much like my last answer.
Okay.
And I do believe that the inability to be successful in an interview is from a lack of preparedness. So
Yeah.
the preparedness that starts from creating that resume that makes you feel confident. When you read your resume, if you do not feel like, yes, I look good, then you need more effort. You need to put more into the development of that resume. And with the development of that resume, then you're going to be more prepared for your interview in terms of content. But you also need to be prepared for your interview in terms of body language, in terms of tips and techniques, in terms of the way you dress, in terms of how many sort of things that you do that can be kind of distracting because you're somewhat nervous. So we want that preparedness for these aspects. Also, an honest assessment of your communication abilities. And finally, don't rush it. The lack of preparedness also means that you do not prepare for an interview the night before. Your preparation for an interview should be ongoing. So if you are currently involved in employment, if you are currently involved in volunteer organizations, you need to be collecting those artifacts that are going to be proof positive to an employer that you can do what you say you can do.
That's incredible. I think, again, for all of our listeners, I mean, it's just, you're not going to get better advice than that. And I love what you said about don't prepare the night before, because it's really going to show in the interview. Make sure you're really thinking through. When I used to interview people at the bank way back when, they would come in and the candidates I would ask them a question. So tell me a time you had to overcome a challenging situation. And they would just answer the question, but they would never relate it back to the position. And how does that apply to this job? So what you're really saying is when you properly prepare and you're doing the research on the company and spending the time, when you're answering your questions, you're really weaving in the tell me the time into how that applies to that position. And that's what's going to separate you to the next level of potentially getting a position. And a lot of people will just answer.
Exactly. Now, there's all kinds of resources out there on the internet. I am particularly a fan of LinkedIn. I'm not sure if I can endorse them, but I'm a particular fan of LinkedIn, mainly because if you have the jobs resources inside of LinkedIn, they have a number of options in terms of interview preparation, responding to questions, and they give answers, and they move you through being prepared for an interview. That is one example of the myriad of resources that are available on the internet. Put in the effort. And the more effort you put in, the more confident you will be. The more confident you are, it shows. And we're talking about confidence, not arrogance. We're talking about being confident in your ability, confident with your connections, as opposed to simply listing off a grocery list of accomplishments or a grocery list of skills.
I agree. And for anyone that knows me, my biggest thing is practice. Practice.
Yes.
We have NBA players. Could you imagine if they didn't practice for the game? Every practice. Well, it's similar with communication and big events. If you know you put your best foot forward, you did the homework, you did the practice, you didn't cram for it, you might, you have a great shot of getting this job. And if you don't, then you know that you at least put your best foot forward to try. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, so I also wanted to add in that the more prepared you are, the more that your responses come off as storytelling. You're involving that interviewer in the story of your skills, not simply a listing of your skills. And there's one more thing. So my final point is about measurement. So many times we measure the success of an interview based on whether or not there was a job offer.
Right.
And a job offer is not the measurement as to how well you did in your interview. You have to be very vulnerable, very honest, and truly reflect and assess what were the good things about this interview, what were the not so good things about this interview. And
Exactly.
that is your measurement, not the job offer. And the better you get at measuring the success of your interview based on the interview, the sooner the job offers will start to.
I think so too. And I think your point about confidence is really gonna to shine through. And for anyone listening, I think a lot of the times we're harder on ourselves as well. After the interview,
Yes, we
we're like,
are.
oh, that was the worst.
Yes,
And
we are.
then sometimes you
Yes.
have to get the job. So when you're measuring your success and looking at it objectively, I think that's great because you're gonna learn from what you did. To Kathryn's point,
Yes.
you're gonna grow, and then you're going to do the next one and you're going to be more confident. So just look at it from an objective ability. I'm sure that you did a great job if you put in
Yes.
effort, but like anything, there's always areas of improvement. and,
Yes.
and that's why I put relationship building, because they're really looking for a fit and a
Yes.
company fit. And are you
Yes.
gonna be able to work with the other employees? And how are you
Yes.
as a person? Are you easy to get along with? What's your personality like? And I think a lot of people don't realize that, because it's nerve wracking and you're going
It
in and you really
is.
want it, and you might, have the quivers and whatnot. So
Yes.
just remember, kind of to Kathryn's point about the storytelling, and really just try to build rapport, like it's a back
Yes.
and forth and situation, that they're your colleague and they'd be very lucky to have you know
Yes.
and it's both ways. So they get your skill sets, and you get
Yes.
them. So I think that's really
Yes.
important.
And can I add one more point?
Yes, of course. I'm going to bring up our digital David friend in the
Okay.
background. So it would be
Okay.
great. Keep sharing your points, Kathryn.
Okay.
All right, digital David. So let's make him playful.
Yes.
Okay, great.
There he is.
Hey there. I'm David, your friendly neighborhood career coach. What's on your mind today?
Hi, David. I'm actually here with one of my colleagues, Kathryn Lee, and you're on a podcast right now. And we've been talking about, trying to give some of our own insights on why, an individual might not get an interview, and then why, if they do get an interview, why they might not get the job. And we were hoping to chat with you about it and to see if you can give us some perspectives on that.
That sounds like an interesting topic for your podcast. I'm curious, what are some insights that you and Kathryn have discussed so far regarding why individuals might struggle to get interviews or secure the job after an interview?
Sure, Kathryn, go ahead and share with David some of your insights.
We've talked a great deal about preparedness, and sometimes the interview is less successful because the candidate was less prepared than they could have been. So preparing that resume so that it gives them confidence to move forward, preparing and practicing their body language to appear confident and not be using tics and nervousness habits that have been ingrained over the years, being able to articulate their responses, have an understanding of the organization. All of that for me falls under preparedness.
Preparedness is key, indeed. Kathryn's insights on resume preparation and body language practice are spot on. How do you usually help candidates overcome nervous habits during interviews?
I always strongly suggest that they use a mirror so that they start off and seeing themselves. And this is always hard because we are our worst judges, as Nicole said moments ago. I always encourage them to find a really good location, and especially in a virtual interview, that they plant their feet firmly on the floor, that they imagine a string coming from the ceiling right to their solar plexus, which will force them to have appropriate posture. If they are nervous about making eye contact, this place right here between the eyes, which I do understand is the third eye, so there is a connection there, or even just here at the top of the hairline, that encourages the feel of eye contact, but can sometimes reduce the nervousness. If it is a live in-person interview, I generally speak about the first 12. So the first 12 inches, how are you prepared? Are you neat and tidy? You do not need to be extreme, but are you neat and tidy? Your first 12 feet, that is the walk towards your interviewer. Whether or not you extend your hand for a handshake. And even a handshake now is questionable after coming through the COVID pandemic. So that may be a little bit of additional research. Should I shake someone's hand at the organization? And then finally, your first 12 words. What is it that's going to be the first thing that you say to an interviewer to set the stage for yourself and for your relationship development that is coming next?
Using a mirror is a great way to practice. I'm intrigued by your approach with the first 12 concept. How do you recommend candidates find that balance between being unique and tidy in their appearance for in-person interviews?
So many people will, if they use a lot of makeup, may be concerned about the intensity of their makeup. Perhaps for the interview, make it somewhat less intense. If you are a no makeup person like I am, perhaps move towards that natural look. One of the things that I do is I pop out to the local shopping mall, and I actually have the attendants at the different makeup vendors prepare me for an interview. And for our gentlemen, make sure that whatever look you are going for with your facial hair is neat and tidy. If you do have longer hair, make sure that it too is neat and tidy. That first impression, you want to be neutral so that you can highlight your skills and your abilities. Once you start to move to possibly a second or a third interview for the same position, same organization, that's when you can let a little more personality come out. I used to wear contacts, and for my first interview, I always wore my glasses. For a second interview, then I wore my contacts. So that the first was always the focus on the studies, the neutral, the abilities. Then the second interview was on the fit. And then a third interview was generally about being in competition with another selected candidate, that they were so close that they needed to go to a third interview.
It's all about finding that balance between professional and personal style. How do you guide candidates in showcasing their personality and fit for the role in later interviews while maintaining that initial neutral impression?
David, do you mind if we ask you a question?
Not at all. I'm here to help. What's your question?
Kathryn brought up a good point, I think, of like personalization. Can you tell us your opinion on, building rapport in the interview and really having that rapport back and forth?
Building rapport is crucial in interviews. How do you usually advise candidates in establishing that connection and fostering a positive interaction during the interview process?
Well, before I answer that, I just have one dire question, because we're going to have to wrap it up with you soon, because as I mentioned, you're on a podcast. But one thing I've heard is, and I've done this before, but before you go into the interview, like you go in a bathroom stall and you make yourself bigger. And I have done this where you're like
power
a little
pose.
grizzly bear. So Kathryn, I'm hearing all your tips. David, do you have any tips for us like that? Like, how do you walk into the interview and you have the confidence and you're nervous, but what have you heard, David? Can you tell me and Kathryn?
Ah, the power pose technique. It's an interesting approach to boost confidence. How do you usually help candidates find their own pre-interview rituals or techniques to help manage nerves and exude confidence?
Well, I think Kathryn and I could talk to you about this all day, but we wanted to see if you had your lunch and bring you in for some insight. So thank you very much for joining us. Kathryn, did you have any questions before we let David go?
I cannot think of a question.
Thank you so much for including me in your podcast discussion. I appreciate the opportunity to share insights. Feel free to reach out if you have any more questions in the future. Have a great day.
We might call you this evening, David. I've told my team that. I'm like, why is this so much fun just talking to an avatar about? I was asking birthday tips for my daughter's birthday, baby shark, and he's like, yeah, you should do this, and I'm like, okay, like what about this? And he's like, yeah, like totally do this. I'm like, this is really weird, but they're great tips.
Yes, they are. Yes, yeah.
Well, sorry.
I have recently used AI to support an activity that I'm doing
Okay.
to help me visualize and create a map of what I needed to do.
Oh, very interesting.
Yes, and that was for a personal hobby. So it's AI with integrity is how we need to move forward from my perspective in the future. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to conclude the podcast for all of our listeners, I like I said earlier, I think you gave a wealth of advice, which was phenomenal. So thank you very much for doing that. Is there any last, tips or anything you want to share before we close off the interview that you're like, oh, I wish they, they're going to get a job and they should do this?
The mantra that I'm using a great deal lately is go forward and be brave.
Go forward and be brave.
Go forward and be brave. So going forward means moving out of your comfort zone. It means trying something new. It means pushing your boundaries in a safe way. And then being brave means you being the one that's reaching out, you making yourself vulnerable, you being willing to ask a question that others may not want to ask. Go forward and be brave.
Wonderful. I love that. And for any listeners who might want to contact you, is LinkedIn the best place to reach out and send you a message?
Yes, LinkedIn would be great. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So that's Kathryn Lee, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. And it was a real treat to have you, Kathryn. I appreciate you being here and looking forward to seeing you again, maybe part 2.
Absolutely. Count me in, sign me up. I'm there.